everyone, I'm Shelly Lyle.
And I'm Jessica Francis.
And welcome to Voices from the Field, a podcast brought to you by the Department of Sport Management at the University of Florida. This podcast was created to share the career journeys of sport industry professionals. Our hope is that you learn the ins and outs of different sport industry professions. We are excited to be with all of you this week and with our special guest, Coach William Green, defensive line coach at Jacksonville State University.
Coach Green is in his 9th year coaching and 3rd season coaching for the Gamecocks. His coaching prowess is evident with 10 of his defensive linemen earning all-conference honors and the team leading the league in sacks. Coach Green's tenure at JSU has been marked by defensive dominance. Before JSU, Coach Green worked at the University of Louisiana Monroe, and before that, he played for the Browns and played in the AFL. Coach Green is also a Gator. He played right here at the University of Florida from 2008 until 2011. We're so excited to have him on the show. Welcome, Coach.
Thank you for having me.
Coach Green, it's great to have you with us. Would love to start out with, your career journey. Can you share a little bit about how that got started and when you knew you wanted to be a coach and why?
Well, start back at the end of college. I left UF in 2000 after 2011. I went on draft to the Browns, and like I said, played in the AFL and bounced around in those leagues a little bit. And once all that kind of ended, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do for certain. I know I want to stay kind of close to sports. I know while I was in school, I kind of bounced around the idea of coaching, being a strength coach, working in administration, doing all those things. I thought about all of it, but I was actually working in a warehouse for 9 months trying to figure all that out. And my former high school coach had gotten a job at Jacksonville State. And I called him to congratulate him, and he had brought up the idea of maybe you should come up here and be a grad assistant. I know I want to get a master's degree. And I said, well, sure, I can try this, be a grad assistant. And came up, got to work with some really good people, and really, really enjoyed it. And actually, I'm on my 11th year going to my 11th year of coaching, but it's 11 years later, here we are. Just, been at 3 different schools coaching and had some pretty good success while doing it.
Awesome. And in your current position, what are your daily duties and roles?
So that kind of depends on what time of year it is. So we're talking about in the season. I mean, obviously, you're breaking down opponent film. You're watching recruiting film. You are, organizing meetings, organizing practices, putting together a plan for all your guys and things of that nature. And that really kind of differs from school to school. And I think, one thing people don't really understand is coaching ain't coaching everywhere. And what I mean by that is, like if you're at a lower level school, like a Division II school or something, your daily duties are probably gonna be very different than if you're at a school like the University of Florida. Just, sometimes you got coaches in situations, they gotta be the they would have to be the equipment manager and the D-line coach, whereas, the bigger schools, they're probably just being the D-line coach. So there's those differences too, but, those are just what some of my daily duties are as far as, what I do right now.
And what are some things you think most students really wouldn't know about in your role?
I think the administrative side of things that are in coaching that, people don't really think about. Like there's a whole – because they're student athletes, right? So you got to worry about their academics, and you got to deal with people in the athletic department as well. And just like anything, not all athletic departments are the same. I mean, because it's people involved. Nobody's the same. Nobody, you're working with this person here, and some people might be easier to work with than others, and all that stuff. So you got to really, with your administrative work, just be on top of that, know how to organize, know how to present. So if you're like doing a PowerPoint presentation in school and you maybe want to be a coach one day, I mean, you probably, that's, you don't know if that's preparing you to be a coach, because you're going to have to learn how to present, learn how to do those things, learn how to like teach and, articulate your words and stuff. So it's a lot of that stuff that goes on that I don't think people really think about as far as the outside is concerned.
That's so insightful. I wouldn't have thought about that as something coaches would do, but it makes sense. Okay, so since you're a coach, how would you say your coaching has, or your leadership has evolved over the years?
I think getting older and being more mature too. Um, I have something like learned like what is important and kind of what ain't important. You know what I'm saying? Just as far as when you're leading guys and just how to handle certain situations because you start out and you know what you know at that point. I'd been around my coaches that I played for and and I knew what they did when I played for them, but I didn't really know anything else. So I've kind of just seen different methods, seen different ways of leadership and things of that nature. And then it's like anything else, as you do it, you grow more confident in doing it. Because I think if you go ask anybody from my way back in the day when I played at Florida, they'll tell you I'm a shy guy who doesn't talk. Well, it's just funny now for a living. I stand in front of people every day and hold meetings and practices and speak and do all these other things. And so it's just kind of just growing in that confidence, doing that job every single day.
That's great. And so what's one thing you wish you had known when you were just starting out in your career?
I think the one thing I wish I'd have known is that you're not going to be ready and you're not going to have all the answers, and that's okay. And that's in anything you do, right? I mean, there's not a, hey, let me just read this handbook and go be a football coach. You know what I'm saying? I know there's a book called Coaching for Dummies, but it ain't it ain't accurate. So like just knowing, hey, you're not gonna have all the answers. You're not gonna know everything, and it's okay you don't know everything. You can find out the answer. You don't have to know everything. Take the time to learn. Don't despise that developmental time. And I think that's something in society we just do a lot of right now. Just don't despise that developmental time. It's okay that you don't happen right now. Take the time to learn and grow, and it's okay you don't know everything. Just keep learning and keep working at it.
That's great.
That's awesome. And what are some of the best resources that have helped you along the way?
Well, the best resource in this business is people, 100% people. And because it alludes to like one thing I got to do way back in 2015 when I was a real young coach. I was in year 3, still a graduate assistant, was the Bill Walsh minority internship in the NFL. I got to do that with the Cleveland Browns in 2015. And I got to do that from a relationship I had that stemmed from the University of Florida with Anthony Weaver, who was a grad assistant here at the time at UF when I played, and he was the D-line coach for the Browns at the time. He knew I was in coaching. We kind of stayed in contact over the years, and he invited me up to do the internship, and I did it. And it was a really great experience, and I learned a lot, and just going and visiting other coaches. Just hey, no big clinic or nothing like that. Just hey, I got some time, and they're gonna be or whatever. We'll just go visit with them and pick their brain and study under a lot of people. So that's probably been the best resource that I've used in my coaching career, just going to visit with people.
Awesome. And then to follow up on that, who would you say are the 3 most influential people in your kind of career journey?
Ooh.
Or at least 3 of some of the most influential. It doesn't have to be specifically. I know it gets a little tough.
Yeah, it gets tough. I've been around a lot of good ones. I go Todd Bates. He was the first coach I GA'd for. He's now the D-line coach at Oklahoma. Chris Rump was one of them too. He GA'd for him at Florida. And I just throw a big category and say all the head coaches I worked for. We'll say that much.
Awesome. And and even veering off that kind of topic a little bit, like the resources, can you explain, for our students when I do career coaching, for those interested in coaching and football specifically, I talk about the coaching trees. Can you share a little bit about how that works and how you feel that impacts your career journey in the field?
Yeah, I mean, coaching trees are really how you stay in it. I mean, it's all about who you know. You can't get on Indeed.com and apply to be the D-line coach at the university or whatever, right? You got to know somebody, and somebody's got to know you more importantly. And, the people you work that know you and the people who can vouch for you and they know what type of person you are, know what type of work ethic you have and the type of work you do and stuff. That's what'll keep you around. The more people you know, the better chance you have. It's kind of, you can, I've used this analogy in my life a lot. Just, Whitney Houston, I think most people say one of the greatest voices of all time. Well, if she was in the middle of the frozen tundra singing and nobody ever heard her, right, then it really wouldn't matter. Same thing in coaching. You can be the best coach in the world, but if you don't know anybody and nobody knows you, you're not going to get an opportunity to work anywhere and be with anybody. You got to build relationships, and it's such a relationship-driven business, and that's the big thing with the coaching trees. It's all relationship-based.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, I think that's a good reminder for our students, especially in coaching. Because I think, when they're young, they don't really know, and they might kind of have an idea if they've played at a high level, but I think it's critical from what I've noticed from the outside. And then what activities in your job have you enjoyed and some that you found really challenging?
I've enjoyed definitely the recruiting process, getting to know the different families, getting to know the different kids. And one of the cool things is, especially when you kind of go around high schools, because, every high school is different. And the thing I see, though, is when you get to core kids, I know kids, you might come from a certain area or whatever, but when you get to the core of people, you'll find out the kids really aren't that different when you get to the core of it. You know what I mean? And I found that to be one thing that I pretty much enjoy building relationships with them. As far as what you find most difficult, I won't say it's an activity, but I'll say this for, young coaches especially. Comparison is a thief of joy. And it's so hard sometimes, to sit up and try to not look left or look right and say, well, I've done this and I've done that. I should be able to accelerate in here, and this guy didn't do this. Don't compare your career to somebody else's. That's another thing. Like, don't do that. Just keep doing your job and staying on that track. So probably staying on that track. It's a challenge. It's a challenge for everybody. Like, you got to stay on that track without looking left, without looking right. Doing the job that you're doing and doing it well.
I actually forgot we were in the middle of an interview. I was just listening, like, wow, that's such good insight. I'm like, oh wait, it's my turn to ask questions. But that is really insightful. And I recently listened to a podcast. What's the Seahawks coach name? The head coach?
It was Pete Carroll. They just changed.
Oh, that's right. But I was thinking of Pete Carroll. He was the one that was on the podcast, and he was saying that when he first started out in his career, he was trying to mimic the coaches that he had prior, and that it just didn't fit, and the guys knew. And so kind of in that similar vein, what are important things that students who are interested in pursuing coaching, things that they should consider as they want to get into that field?
Well, number one, I'd say make sure you love it and make sure you really want to do it, because it ain't for the weak. It's really not. This is not a job for the weak. And I say that because now in coaching, there's probably more celebrity in being a coach than there probably ever has been. And if you want to be a coach, you better make sure you really, really want to do it and not be just a guy that gets to put on Twitter and jump up and down and on TV and all that other stuff. That's part of it too. A few other things I'd say, and I'm mainly talking to student athletes, because I guess most coaches, if you really look at their background, no matter what sport, they probably played that sport at some point. So, right now in the landscape of college football or college athletics, really, we have NIL, transfer portal, all these athletes got more stuff than they ever have had. And unfortunately, some of them probably got more stuff than they ever will have too, if we're being honest. Don't be a bad person through all that. Because remember, this is about relationships, the relationship business, right? So if you're a student athlete, right, and you're upset for whatever reason you're upset, and you just screw this, I'm gonna go get in the transfer portal. You don't talk to anybody. You're kind of a jerk on the way out, all that other stuff. Well, 5 years later, you want to be a coach. And I've said this before. One thing about coaching, you also got to consider somebody's got next. And as I look at the sports media, sometimes it's kind of like they divide coaches and athletes a lot of times like, was coaches screwing athletes over? Well, guess what most coaches were before we were coaches? We were athletes, you know? So who were the next coaches? The athletes, most of the time, right? So if you want to get into coaching, be somebody that is, you know, people respect and people will be willing to help, and somebody that, you know, people think will work hard and stuff like that. Because them same people you might be a jerk to, that same grad assistant you might have cussed out because you were mad that day, or that same like coach you just said, "Nah, I'm screw you, yeah, I'm just gonna go in the." That might be the same guy you might be calling for a recommendation or a job one day. You know what I mean? And there's something I think about this, like with, you know, the nature of this stuff right now, like how's that going to look in a few years? That's something, you know, crosses my mind. So just, I would say, you know, especially for student athletes, like don't be a person that, you know, is nobody's going to want to, don't leave a place in a negative light in somebody's mind. I'll say that. And to somebody who might not be a student athlete, I'd say, you know, get in and start right away. You know, there's student internships, there's you can volunteer, you can do a whole bunch of stuff. People are always looking for help to do whatever. So, you know, just go up there and introduce yourself to somebody. They might say go away. That's okay. There might be other avenues. So that's just a few things I would say if you're thinking about getting in it. You know, just, you know, keep all that stuff in mind.
That's such great advice. And I know you already mentioned just kind of working on those skills ahead of time, like before they get to this place. Are there any other, I don't know, soft skills that, because you talked about presenting and how our students can do that now to prepare. Are there any other soft skills like that they should be considering if they want to be a coach?
Yeah, I would say learn every Microsoft program that you can use. I mean, we use it all. We use Word, Excel. There's a program called Visio that you better know how to draw on if you're in coaching. Microsoft Publisher. I mean, I would learn every single one of those skills. You know, I would also probably, like, I don't know if there's like a youth camp somewhere that you could volunteer at. I'd probably just go ahead and start doing that to just train. Because actually, the first time I ever really coached anybody in football was there was a NFL player that I know that was from my hometown. He had a camp, and he needed some guys to come out and coach. And this when I was with the Browns, and I was like, all right, I'll go out there and we'll coach these kids up. So we went out there and we did it. And that was kind of my first time ever really coaching anybody. It was some, you know, kids from Birmingham, Alabama at this NFL players youth camp. So, you know, just doing this stuff like that, you know, you might not see it at the time, but it's developing you to, you know, fine tune those skills.
That's great. And so we know that college athletics is high-paced, fast environment, and it's probably double that for coaches when you consider the pressure and just everything else that's involved. And so what are things you've done to stay healthy in that type of high-paced, high-pressure environment?
I try to work out pretty regularly, and then do what I'm doing now, taking vacation. So you got to get away from it at some point. You got to unplug. You got to recharge, and you know, you got to remember what is the main thing. And I think just outside always working out, everybody needs to probably find some type of little something they like to do outside of that, and because you can, you know, ball all the time you want to, but just it's not gonna it ain't gonna love you back like that. It just ain't. It never does. I mean, because at the end of the day, you know, we were all athletes, right? I mean, kind of told all of us to stop playing. So same thing with, you know, coaching. I mean, I see it eventually. You know, I think Deion Sanders said it best when he left Jackson State. You know, you either elevated, you terminated, and that's real in coaching. You know, and you know, you just need to find a little something, you know, to, you know, put your mind back at ease, whatever that is for you.
I think that's super helpful and also really difficult to do, right? I've worked in athletic departments and played, obviously, and yeah, I think it's consuming, especially at certain levels where everyone's, you know, agreeing with, you know, you're getting affirmation to be as consumed as possible, right? Like there's a lot of verbal affirmation for that. So yeah, that's great. And what about, how have you seen the industry? I feel like I laugh to even ask the question because I'm like, where do we start? But how have you seen the industry grow and change over the past 5 years? How have you seen it grow? And then what do you think the new trends you'll see in the next 1 to 2 years in college athletics? I should be specific.
I think we could probably spend a couple of days on this question.
I know.
I mean, well, let's start with the hot topic, NIL. I mean, that's the biggest one. I actually was laughing with some of my coaching buddies the other day, just like, you think 5 years ago, we were driving around and, I was an FCS coach, and we were driving around in camps, trying to work camps in bigger schools and, get to see players and things of that nature. And, that's kind of seems like it's dwindled since COVID and, NIL became a thing. I think NIL is definitely the biggest change, and along with the conference realignments and, all the money. And I just feel like everyone, not just the players, everyone just seems more greedy now. Like, from the schools talking about we're going to create these super conferences and do all this other stuff to get all this TV money. And, and the players are, getting whatever they want, like blatant check with NIL sometimes and things of that nature. So it's just, that's the biggest way it has changed. As far as where it's heading in 1 or 2 years, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. I'll tell you what I do worry about, though. I do worry about what's going to happen when some of these student athletes who are getting such large deals and stuff, when they're 24, 25 years old and there is no more NIL. They have lived these great lifestyles, and the NFL numbers ain't changing. Just talking about my sport, the NFL numbers are not changing. All right, they draft 250 some odd dudes a year. They have so many undrafted free agents, and 53 people are making the team. that ain't gonna change. So, a lot of you guys making some of this money, I legit worry about them, and that just comes from personal experience. I know how I felt when I got done playing. I know how hard it was for me, and and just some other guys that I know that played the same time I did, just at UF and away from UF, at other places. We talked about it. It was hard when you get done. Now it really is transitioning out of being a student athlete to being a just civilian almost, you want to call whatever you want to call it. So, when that money stops, and then you got to go, oh, we have a job for you for $60,000, and you've been making whatever you've been making. I just wonder how the transition to that's going to be, and that's what I worry about for the student athletes. Just they're transitioning into post playing life out of college, the ones that don't make it to the big time. Because let's just be honest, I mean, there's not a lot of, if you really think about it, not a lot of opportunity pro athletic wise out there. I mean, I guess there's the NFL, NBA, and a few other sports, but I mean, how many of them really paying that well? It's not. So it's something to think about for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think you make so many good points, right? Like, and they're also much younger than even, athletes have had issues with financial decisions and the pressure and the change that happens when money gets involved, right? So like, even at, I'll speak from like a brief experience of like U23 national team versus like the full national team for soccer. And I just remember talking to a teammate who would go back and forth between the U23s and the full team. And I think the reality of like the difference that money, like the difference between just being U23s and not having endorsements, not having a contract and going to the pros. And it's like, such a different environment, both from like a teammate perspective and just the pressure and the reality of like, what money does to an environment that's, meant to be amazing opportunity, fun, all the things. And it's like, no, it changes drastically. So for these athletes, yeah, I think that's another aspect that I wonder for them too, moving forward, like that drop off, as well as like how much it's just going to change the locker room dynamics and their experience as a whole.
Yeah, I think we got to, and there'll be some, I don't know what it is, somewhere along the way, something will happen where, this kind of get into, a little bit smoother. It'll smooth out somehow. I don't know how it will, but I do think it'll smooth out somehow, because I ain't gonna lie, I am for the, student athletes making some money off the name and likeness. I remember, You know, if I'm being honest, like my generation of athletes probably why a lot of this stuff is in place right now. So I don't want to say and be a hypocrite either, because you know we were sitting like, yeah, we should get paid too, like back in the day. So you know, but we need to make sure there's some things in place to protect these student athletes for sure.
Yeah,
Awesome.
now they're apparently they're in the process of determining if student athletes can be considered employees of the university. So that'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the courts. But so for our listeners who would like to maybe ask you their own personal questions for advice to get into your field or just connect with you, what's the best way that they can do that?
You can follow me on Twitter. It's Coach_Will Green. Or you can follow me on Instagram at Coach Green 96.
So easy peasy. Okay, and so this is the part that we did not warn you about on Voices of the Field. We like to have a little bit of fun, so we have some rapid fire Q&A questions. They're lighthearted, but Shelly will walk you through that.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, you're going to be great at this, Coach Green. I promise. Okay, so it's 1 minute. I have a 1 minute timer, and I have just a whole list of questions. We'll probably not get through all of them. We're going to see how many you get through. Pretty easy. You can answer whatever comes to mind first. You can also pass if you'd rather pass. Totally up to you. But are you ready to get started?
Sure.
All right, here we go. When you were little, what did you want to be when you grew up?
NFL player.
Favorite sport to play?
Football.
What's the worst haircut you've ever had?
Pass.
Name 2 daily habits.
Exercising and eating.
Favorite zoo animal.
Lion.
What's the last book you read?
Tony Dungy.
First job.
I cut grass in my neighborhood when I was 12.
Mountains or beaches?
Beaches.
Favorite type of food?
Barbecue.
Favorite holiday?
Thanksgiving.
What phone app do you waste the most time on?
Twitter.
Current hobby?
Barbecuing.
Netflix, Prime Video, or cable?
Netflix.
And time. Good job. You almost got through all of them. I was like,
Yeah,
we're getting
good.
close. That's great.
Favorite haircut? What is that? Worst haircut? What is that?
That's a funny one, though. People have some really good stories. I will say that about that.
It's probably right now. I haven't had a haircut. I'm on vacation. I ain't worried about it. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so much for joining us today and sharing your professional endeavors. We always say that the University of Florida Department of Sport Management, our students, our faculty, alumni, that we all appreciate your thoughts and we value them. So we tell our followers to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We're at UFSPM. And we're your hosts, Jessica Francis.
And Shelly Lyle. And
Go Gators. Thanks, Coach.
You're welcome.